welcome back. This is B-Sides. Loosey-goosey B-Sides. I've been making these compilations from, for example, the Black and Blue compilation. Editor Edward, sorry. You don't have to do any editing. All you have to do is put a link right here, Black and Blue, the first 49. So, whatever, So, the early days, I was kind of like finding the rhythm. And now it's like I found the rhythm, but sometimes I lose the rhythm. But it's interesting to watch the early stuff. It's sort of like the ritual to go back in time for those who have attained the grade of Salator and cracked open their book. It doesn't include people who somehow managed to get all the way to the higher grades without knowing about the ritual to go back in time. But what are we talking about? I don't even know if does that go beyond the Homsey family tree of orders? I don't know. Anyway, what are we talking about? Nothing at all. So the B-Sides has some things in common with those early videos, but it's also different. That's what it is. It's no effort or care put into it whatsoever, which is nice. But also the experience, the confidence that comes from experience and repetition and all that's very much present now that wasn't present then. So that's what the point is those early episodes I'm still a little bit like, okay, but loose also. But then when the hat came in, so check out the Black and Blue that I linked you to, and then at the end of that, if you're still tracking, then there's a link in the end screen to the Black and Red, and then you can kind of see, oh yeah, the hat did make a difference. So yeah, as you know, so this is Team of Rivals Part 4. I have a good friend my whole life, who was always saying, you gotta read this, and I'm the sort of person that I struggle to imagine what it must be like to be a person who would read something like this and like it and recommend it to others. So, you can have a best friend or a partner or whatever of various forms, but also have those kind of there's that old Paul Abdul and Arsenio Hall thing, opposites attract, so sometimes you meet someone who's like the yin to your yang or the yang to your yin, and you kind of like, oh yeah, I need more of you in my life, so maybe it was that kind of thing. But also I've noticed for a long time that when Goodwin, hat guy, and Edward, hi guys, that fucking guy, right, are talking, and then I record it, and then I listen to it, I noticed that Goodwin sounds like Chris, and Edward sounds like Edward, Ed, whatever. They used to call him Ed. Some people still do. It used to bother me, but I got over that, more or less. But anyway, it helps not to be in a cubicle where 50 times a day people are like, hey Ed, the copier, hey Ed, I need you to go down, hey Ed. That's fucking annoying. My wife doesn't call me that, so nobody calls me that in India. Unless they're talking to each other and I overhear, or I see I see that you wrote a note to that person saying that Ed did that. That's a weird thing to say. It's just easier, it's shorter than saying Edward. And plus, people have a variety of fun ways of spelling Edward here whenever I go to Starbucks. Anyway, all right, enough is enough. And the other B-Sides rule, no editing, and half hour. Try not to go over half hour, and we're already at 5 minutes as of right now. So I'll get to the reading. We'll do it. And I think I'm gonna, I don't know if I have any of the Lincoln stuff left in my book, but we'll check. We'll see toward the end. Okay, here we go. I mean, at least with the other books, it may be boring and difficult for me to read, and even frustrating at times. But at least there's subjects that I'm interested in. This is as far out as it gets. The Darkening Age, I'm kind of interested in. Abraham Lincoln, you have to get pretty abstract. Like, yeah, one day I'm gonna maybe delve in or dip in or have a toe connected to some future project that I write where there's an alternate universe Abraham Lincoln, and so it'd be good to do research and get to know the real Abraham Lincoln so that I can flesh out my alternate universe Abraham Lincoln. Other than that, that's the closest I can get to having any kind of interest or motivation to read this, aside from the fact that I've committed to do it and I'm good at, and it's only once every 10 episodes of Chicken Philosophy, so it's like once a month basically. I read another little bit of this for like 20 minutes, so we can do this. We can do it. By we, I mean me. Okay. It soon became clear. Oh, was it a Scientologist? No. Read the rest of the sentence, fucker. It soon became clear, however, that Abraham Lincoln would emerge the undisputed captain of this most unusual cabinet. Truly, a team of rivals. She said the thing! She said the thing! Doris said the thing! That's the thing. Okay. The powerful competitors who had originally disdained Lincoln became colleagues who helped him steer the country through its darkest days. Darkest days so far at the time, you should say. Doris apparently had no idea what was... No. There's nothing... I don't think even the 20s have been as bad as the 60s. And by 20s, I mean 2020s, and by 60s, I mean 1860s. Different 20s, different 60s. Not the roaring 20s, not the hippie 60s. Although Vietnam was pretty terrible. I mean, what's worse? Shooting yourself in the foot over and over and over and over, or just like going and shooting other people in the head? Maybe the 1960s is worse. Well, anyway, okay. Why? Because communism. Where were we? I don't know. Seward, S-E-W-A-R-D, Seward, was the first to appreciate Lincoln's remarkable talents. No. Quickly realizing the futility of his plan to relegate the president to a figurehead role. In the months that followed, Seward would become Lincoln's closest friend and advisor in the administration. Though Bates initially viewed Lincoln as a well-meaning but competent administrator, he eventually concluded that the president was an unmatched leader, quote, very near being a perfect man. End quote. Edwin Stanton, who had treated Lincoln with contempt at their initial acquaintance, developed a great respect for the commander-in-chief and was able to control his tears. The opposite of that. He was unable to control his tears for weeks after the president's death. Even Chase, whose restless ambition for the presidency was never realized, at last acknowledged that Lincoln had outmaneuvered him. This, then, is a story of Lincoln's political genius, revealed through his extraordinary array of personal qualities that enabled him to form friendships with men who had previously opposed him, to repair injured feelings that, left untended, might have escalated into permanent hostility, to assume responsibilities for the failures of subordinates, to share credit with ease, and to learn from mistakes. He possessed an acute understanding, how cute, he possessed an acute understanding of the sources of power inherent in the presidency, an unparalleled ability to keep his governing coalition intact, a tough-minded appreciation of the need to protect his presidential prerogatives. See, if this were A-sides, then Chris Brown would have started playing just then. It's not every day that the word prerogative comes up. It's my prerogative. We do what we can, you know, and we can't do that. I'll do anything for love, but I won't do that. Wuss. Come on. Grab your ankles. Strap-on situation. I assume. I don't know. It's not... Never mind. And a masterful sense of timing. His success... another lovely thing about B-sides is I don't edit out the throat clearings. So, hopefully, it's not too bad. His success in dealing with the strong egos of men in his cabinet, I keep thinking like the cupboard cabinet, no, suggests that in the hands of a truly great politician, the qualities we generally associate with decency and morality, kindness, sensitivity, compassion, honesty, and empathy can also be impressive political resources. Okay. Before I began this book... Oh, this is Doris talking. Don't do that. Before I began this book, aware of the sorrowful aspect of his features and the sadness attributed to him by his contemporaries, I had assumed that Lincoln suffered from chronic depression. Yet, with the exception of 2 despondent episodes in his early life that are described in this story, there is no evidence that he was immobilized by depression. On the contrary, even during the worst days of the war, he retained his ability to function at a very high level. No little blue pills for Mr. To be sure, he had a melancholy temperament, most likely imprinted on him from birth. But melancholy differs from depression. It is not an illness. It does not proceed from a specific cause. It is an aspect of one's nature. Okay. It has been recognized by artists and writers for centuries as a potential source of creativity and achievement. Moreover, Lincoln possessed an uncanny understanding of his shifting moods, a profound self-awareness that enabled him to find constructive ways to alleviate sadness and stress. Indeed, when he is compared with his colleagues, it is clear that he possesses the most even-tempered disposition of them all. Time and again, he was the one who dispelled his colleagues' anxiety and sustained their spirits with his gifts of storytelling and his life-affirming sense of humor. When resentment and contention threatened to destroy his administration, he refused to be provoked by petty grievances, to submit to jealousy, or to brood over perceived slights. Through the appalling pressures he faced day after day, he retained an unflagging faith in his country's cause. Kill all the Indians, right? The comparative approach has also yielded an interesting cast of female characters. It's okay when a female author says female. At least she's not saying femboid or whatever the incels say. Characters to provide perspective on the Lincoln's marriage. The fiercely idealistic Frances Seward served as her husband's social conscience. Isn't that his cabinet member's wife? I assume. Or sister. I don't know. Maybe. I thought Seward was a first name. Now I know it's not. Good to know. I learned something today. I would say click like and subscribe, but don't click like and subscribe. Not on this. The beautiful Kate Chase made her father's quest. Is that his cabinet member's daughter? Sounds like the setup for a really stale porno. Made her father's quest for the presidency the ruling passion of her life, while the devoted Julia Bates created a blissful home that gradually enticed her husband away from public ambitions. Oh. Okay. Like Frances Seward, Mary Lincoln displayed a striking intelligence. Like Kate Chase, she possessed what was then considered an unladylike interest in politics. You ever see Yentl? That was editorial. Never mind. Mary's detractors had suggested that if she had created a more tranquil domestic life for her family, Lincoln might have been satisfied to remain in Springfield. So Mary was a little bit... Never mind. Yet the idea that he could have been a contented homebody like Edward Bates contradicts everything we know of the powerful ambition that drove him from his earliest days. By widening the lens to include Lincoln's colleagues and their families, my story benefited from a treasure trove of primary sources that have not generally been used in Lincoln biographies. The correspondence of the Seward family contains nearly 5,000 letters, including an 800-page diary that Seward's daughter Fanny, which is British for vagina, so that's kind of awkward, kept from her 15th year until 2 weeks before. It's American for ass. So either way, why would you name your daughter Fanny? I guess it was the 1800s, maybe, or a different time. I shall name her ass, but that's British for vagina. Even better. Different century, different... Never mind. In addition to the voluminous journals which Salmon Chase, S-A-L-M-O-N, like the fish, Chase, like the bank, Fish Bank, revealed the events of 4 decades, he wrote thousands of personal letters. A revealing section of his daughter Kate's diary also survives, along with dozens of letters from her husband, William Sprogway. Sprog, that has a G-U-E at the end. The unpublished section of the diary that Bates began in 1846 provides a more intimate glimpse of the man than the published diary that starts in 1859. Letters to his wife Julia during his years in Congress expose the warmth beneath his stolid exterior. Stanton's emotional letters to his family and his sister's unpublished memoir reveal the devotion and idealism that connected the passionate, hard-driving war secretary to his president. The correspondence of Montgomery Blair's sister, Elizabeth Blair Lee, and her husband, Captain Samuel Phillips Lee, leaves, any relation to the screwdriver, leaves a memorable picture of daily life in wartime Washington. The diary of Gideon Welles, of course, has long been recognized for its penetrating insights into the workings of the Lincoln administration. Through these fresh sources, we see Lincoln liberated from his familiar frock coat and stovepipe hat. I am not familiar with a frock coat or a stovepipe hat in reference to Lincoln. That's how unfamiliar, uninterested, disinterested. I mean, okay, yeah. Lincoln, sure. The penny, Emancipation Proclamation, right? Yeah, okay. Continue reading, Gideon. We see him late at night relaxing at Seward's house, his long legs stretched before a blazing fire, talking of many things besides the war. Gotta talk about other things, We hear his curious and infectious humor in the punchlines of his favorite stories and sit in on glamorous cabinet discussions regarding emancipation and Reconstruction. We feel the enervating tension in the telegraph office as Lincoln clasps Stanton's hand, awaiting bulletins from the battlefield. We follow him to the front on a dozen occasions and observe the invigorating impact of his sympathetic, kindly presence on the morale of the troops. In all these varied encounters, Lincoln's vibrant personality shines through. In the mirrors of his colleagues, he comes to life. To life, l'chaim. He comes to, like cheers, but coming instead of drinking. L'chaim, to life. Here's to the father I tried to be. Here's to my bride to be. Drink l'chaim. To die da 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 da. Da 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 da. Why do they keep saying die? Die die da 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 da. Die die da 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 da. Zava Shastyarovia, heaven bless you both, Nostrovia. To your health and may we live together in peace. Apparently you haven't seen the end of the fucking play. What the fuck? Sorry, I don't know what happened there. Ooh. Okay. As a young man, Lincoln worried that The Field of Glory would be a good title for a Sting solo album. The Field of Glory had been harvested by the Founding Fathers, that nothing had been left for his generation but modest ambitions. In the 1850s, however, the wheel of history turned. The rising intensity of the slavery issue... Sorry, my God. And the threatening dissolution of the nation itself provided Lincoln and his colleagues with an opportunity to save and improve the democracy established by Washington, Jefferson, and Adams, creating what Lincoln later called a new birth of freedom. Without the march of events that led to the Civil War, Lincoln would still have been a good man, but most likely would never have been publicly recognized as a great man. It was history that gave him the opportunity to manifest his greatness, providing the stage that allowed him to shape and transform our national life. One more paragraph, and then we're going to move on to the fun stuff. For better than 30 years, as a working historian, I have written on leaders I knew, such as Lyndon Johnson, and interviewed intimates of the Kennedy family and many who knew Franklin Roosevelt, a leader perhaps as indispensable in his ways as was Lincoln to the social and political direction of the country. After living with the subject of Abraham Lincoln for a decade, however, reading what he himself wrote and what hundreds of others have written about him, following the arc of his ambition, and assessing the inevitable mixture of human foibles and strengths that made up his temperament, after watching him deal with the terrible deprivations of his childhood, the deaths of his children, and the horror that engulfed the entire nation, I find that after nearly 2 centuries, the uniquely American story of Abraham Lincoln has unequaled power to captivate the imagination and to inspire emotion. Part 1, The Team of Rivals. Oh my God, it's a picture of them. See, if this were A-sides, I'd scan it and some shit. But it's not. I don't have to read that again for a month. Yay! Okay. Put that back. And pull this out. So Lincoln in my book was like a John Brown character, but he was rebelling against the omniscient, surveillance state. Oh, it's raining. How nice. Of the Catholic world empire. And then there was somehow it ended up being centered in New York and being known as the New World Empire. But, and that has something to do with 1776. So Lincoln came around within the New World Empire. I don't know. I haven't fleshed that stuff out. I just sort of was like, okay, this is the backstory, but it's not clearly visualized. I think I started with the phrase the New World Empire, and then made that timeline and backstory to explain why it's the New World Empire, and New York City being New World Center in that universe. So in that universe, Lincoln, got a bunch of guys, a bunch of guns, and tried to start a revolution, and it failed. But people remembered the one guy who dared to stand up for the freedom of individual rights, or whatever the fuck I thought I was supposed to be into when I was in my 20s. New Ancient Land. Oh yeah, let's read this. The Lincolns are involved. So by the time the 27th century or whatever rolls around, New Ancient Land is this initiatory school that has 18 palaces, 13 palaces. I don't know. We only really talk about three of them, mostly two of them, mostly one of them. But we make reference to two of them. I'll just read it. Let's just read it. It's a chapter called New Ancient Land. It's in New World Empire in the Interdimensional Coffeehouse. Get yourself a copy. I'll put the link in the description. Italics. I am a feather in the wind. I am the wind, and I am the feather. I am the source, and I am the destination. I am here now. A Palace One mantra. The following is an incomplete account of the teachings and practices of New Ancient Land, the spiritual hub of the free worlds, in the alternate or simulated reality of what has come to be called the New World Empire universe. That's from the point of view of the multiverse cartographer. So if you're traveling from universe to universe, then the universe with the New World Empire in it is the New World Empire universe, but the free worlds are by definition outside of the New World Empire. So see how it's a little confusing? Or the Henry the Ninth universe, where Henry grew up and became king instead of not doing that. Henry the Ninth, Henry the Eighth's son. So Catherine of Aragon, they never had an issue. They loved Catherine of Aragon. They stayed together. Henry never became Protestant. History turned out a little differently in this universe. It's the original divergent incident, they call it. Okay, the process, teachings, and descriptions of the palaces of New Ancient Land are kept in strict secrecy in that universe. Charles Reuben gained access to some of it through direct and indirect experience, and shared it in his journals. It is not a word-for-word account, as one can deduce from the fact that the style of English it is written in is not consistent with the standard English of that universe. I got tired of writing in Shakespearean, so I was just like... Actually, these are my old notes long before I decided that they all spoke Shakespearean. Charles Reuben makes the point, because the idea is that in the Henry the Ninth had a dictionary made, and everybody stuck to it. And when Henry the Ninth was around was when they spoke in Elizabethan, but there was no Elizabethan because there was no Elizabeth, right? Anyway, Charles Reuben makes the point of that the secrecy of the teachings is very much wrapped up in the secrecy of the free worlds themselves, which was necessary for the survival of those who lived outside of the New World Empire's influence. Similar to how the esoteric schools in Europe have to be hidden because they didn't want to get murdered by the Roman Catholic Church, right? Since the resistance had a beginning and an end in every version of that universe, which Charles Reuben explored, there's no version of the New World Empire universe where the good guys win. It's kind of bleak. Since the resistance had a beginning and an end in every version of that universe, which Charles Reuben had explored, so that leaves the door open that maybe there was one where it turns out all right. And since Charles Reuben was sharing it not with the New World Empire of Greg's 21 through 2684, 2100 through 2684, that's Pope Gregory, the Gregorian calendar, Greg's. So they say, so this is Greg's 2026. That's what they would call it. We're living in Greg's 2026. So if you're trying to decide whether to say Anno Domini or Common Era, just say Greg's 2026. I'm trying to get that started. It's my Felicia. It's my fetch. I'm trying to make fetch happen. Okay. But rather with aspiring multiverse cartographers like yourself, He reasoned that his vows of secrecy did not apply. Further, he did not personally directly share the information. However, he did write it in his journals, knowing full well that his journals would eventually become the foundation of multiverse cartography. Right, that whole library scene. Remember? Get this book, seriously. So, with all of that being clear, here is all the information we have about the palaces of New Ancient Land as passed down to us through the writings of Charles Reuben. Palace 1, we will get to next time. We've passed the 30-minute mark, and that's part of the rules of B-Sides is we don't go much past half an hour. So, today was fun-ish. Tomorrow will be Buddhist Books B-Sides. I think it's time for 14 Dalai Lamas again. And then, what's today? Thursday. So Friday will be B-Sides. Saturday will be A-Sides, Buddhist Books. We'll be back to TV Taka. And Sunday will be the next Red and Purple episode. Check out the Red and Purple compilation video. I made that yesterday. So on the old A-Sides schedule, it starts with Black and Blue, Edward reading Carl Jung, and the second part of the 15 cycle is Red and Purple, which is when I, Goodwin, represented by the color red, read these days the Acts of Thomas in India, represented by the color purple. Not to be confused with the Oprah movie with Whoopi Goldberg. I don't think Oprah was... My mom watched it. I was too young. All right. Until next time, take care of yourself. All right. Ta-ta. Peace.